Hello there and welcome to the series of videos going through the content of A-Level Maths. Here we're looking at the three new trigonometric functions of sec, cosec and cot. So we can answer questions from exercise 6a. So let's get to it. Sec is equal to 1 over cos, cosec is equal to 1 over sine, and cot is equal to 1 over tan. If you remember back to right-angled trigonometry days, this sec is also equal to hypotenuse over adjacent, or the ratio between the hypotenuse and the adjacent. Cosec is equal to the ratio between the hypotenuse and the opposite side, and cot is equal to the ratio between the adjacent side and the opposite side. Notice here how they're basically upside down, given that we've just got 1 over cos, 1 over sine, 1 over tan. Okay. Generally don't need to memorise these things here in red, but definitely these things here in black. One way of remembering which sec, cosec or cot goes to the appropriate function is to look at the third letter, and that will tell you exactly what function you're going to have a 1 over of. Okay, it's a little bit annoying how there's an S here, it could go to sine, and a C here, and how it could go to cos, but yeah, it's the third letter actually. Okay, all three of these functions here are not defined for when the function on the bottom is equal to 0. So for example, you can't have sec of 90 degrees. Why not? Well, because 1 over cos 90 is 0, and you can't have 1 over 0. And in addition, you can't have cosec of 180 because sine of 180 is 0, and you can't have 1 over 0. So there are some values of theta that you can't have, and they correspond to whenever the denominator is equal to 0. So, just to clarify a bit of notation here, the standard notation is x to the power of minus 1 in indices gives you 1 over x, but we're not going to use this notation with sine, cos and tan. Think about it, if you were to write cos minus 1 as a power, you're generally referring to the inverse cos rule, arc cos. You could also write this as and this is equal to finding the angle given that you've got a ratio between an adjacent and the hypotenuse side, but this is not equal to, we wouldn't use this notation in trigonometry. We don't use the 1 over notation of power of minus 1 in trigonometry, so you can just forget all about that. So generally don't put a minus 1 if you're representing 1 over cos, just write 1 over cos, or you can write sec instead. Okay, so something which is very useful later on in this chapter as well is if we were to consider tan theta equals sine over cos, then what does cot equal? Well, it's 1 over tan theta, so you can flip this fraction upside down. So cot theta is equal to, and always equal to, so it can have a third equality on it, cos over sine. Okay, let's go through a few basic questions just to get us started with how we use sec, cosec and cot. The first question is, what will cosec of 200, will it be positive or negative? Well, cosec is the function that refers to 1 over sine. 1 over sine of 200, well, what is sine of 200? Sine of 200 here looks to be negative, so therefore 1 over something negative will also be negative, so it is negative. Okay, the question won't be that easy, probably be more something like this. Find the value of sec 280 to 2 decimal places. Well, if you remember, sec is 1 over cos, so to work out sec of 280, you work out in your calculator 1 over cos of 280, making sure that you set up a fraction button in your calculator properly, and just be careful of what degrees mode you're in. You should be in degrees rather than radians for this question, so make sure you're in degrees. So in this case here, it's going to be 1 over a decimal, and 1 over a decimal generally gives you a big number, 5.76 for example, and that's the answer to this question. Next question, find the value of cot of 115. So onto your calculator, fraction button, 1 over tan 115, and you get minus 0.47. Okay, let's look at exact values here. Now work out the exact value of sec 210. So let's think about what 210 would be on the cos graph. 210 would be down here. So it would be up from 90 degrees by 60 degrees if we use rotational symmetry around this 90 degree point. It'd be this point here rotated round. So it'd be same as the negative of cos 30 degrees. Cos 30 degrees is root 3 over 2. So it's going to be 1 over minus root 3 over 2. And now we need to sort this fraction out, so it's going to be 1 divided by root 3 over 2. How do you divide fractions? Well, change the 1 into 1 over 1, and then change this into 2 over root 3. So kiss and flip, multiply and switch around the second fraction. So it's going to be 2 over root 3. You may want to rationalise the denominator though. So it's going to be minus 2 over root 3, or minus 2 root 3 over 3. Okay. Whoops, there we are. Okay, work out the exact value of cosec 3 pi by 4. So remember, cosec is the sine one, so let's have a look at the sine graph. Sine 3 pi by 4 will be at this point here, which will be the same as sine pi by 4. Sine pi by 4 is 1 over root 2. So it's going to be 1 over root 2. And if you've got a 1 over 1 over, you get root 2. So the answer here is going to be root 2. Okay, your turn to have a go at this question here. Without a calculator, put that calculator to the side. Write down the values of these four expressions here. Okay then, let's get started. So part A, cosec is the sine one, so 1 over sine 90. Sine 90 is 1, so this is just going to be 1 over 1, which is 1. Cot of 135. Let me just remind myself of the tan graph, so it's going to look a little bit like this. So we have an asymptote up to 90 degrees. We have a 180 marker here. So the tan of 135 is going to be a negative value. Using symmetry around, rotational symmetry around the asymptote line here at 90 degrees, we're going to see here that this is going to be this negative same as 45 degrees. So it's going to be 1 over minus tan 45. So this is going to be minus 1 over, so 1 over minus 1, which equals minus 1. Part C, cosec of 180. Let's just remind ourselves of the sec graph. Note of the cos graph, I mean. So in this case here, it's going to be minus 1. So this is going to be 1 over minus 1, which is also equal to minus 1. And sec of 240. Well, this is the 270 marker, so 240 is going to be somewhere here. It's going to be the same as the this is going to be the 180 marker, so it's going to be 90 up, we've gone 30 backwards, 90 upwards, this is going to be 120. And then using the rotational symmetry around this 90 degree point here, it's going to be the same as 60. Okay, so it's going to be the same as minus 1 over cos 60. Cos 60 is a half, so this is going to be minus 2. Okay, there we are. These are the answers to these questions here then. Feel free to check them out on your calculator as well, just to make sure we've got them all right. Okay, so that's the introduction to sec, cosec and tan. Please have a go at the questions from exercise 6a. Do have a go at these basic questions before we move on later on, because we don't want to get bogged down in the easy stuff, whereas we can just skip through it and concentrate on the content later on. Okay, thanks very much for watching.